Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I've got a true crime case for you all, and today's case is on Barbara Graham, a woman that had an awful childhood and ended up getting herself involved in a robbery that led to the murder of an elderly widow. It's a crazy one, let's just say that. It's a bit of a shorter one, but I found it very interesting and it's quite old, but I did my best to find as much information as I could. But before we discuss the case today, I just wanted to say please make sure you're subscribed because it means the world to me, and also if you could leave a comment down below, that would be great. It really helps my video out and helps the algorithm, and I also just love discussing the cases with you, to be honest. And give it a big thumbs up if you enjoy it. If you don't, I'm sorry. Right, let's just jump straight in. Barbara Graham was born in Oakland, California as Barbara Elaine Ford on June 26th, 1923. She was born to 17-year-old mother Hortense Wood, and her mother was of Portuguese descent on her father's side, and the original family name having been Furtado. Hortense was unmarried and earned money by being a prostitute. It's unknown who Barbara's father was. On February 23rd, 1925, Hortense, still unwed, gave birth to a second daughter, Claire Elizabeth. So Barbara had a sister, very close in age. On October 10th, 1929, at the age of 23, Hortense married Joseph Wood Sr. in Alameda. Hortense, along with Barbara and Claire's surnames, were all changed to Wood, and Hortense and Joseph Sr. actually had a son together called Joseph Robert Wood Jr. So this is Barbara and Claire's half-brother, and he was born on March 27th, 1930. However, Joseph Sr., so Hortense's new husband, died on January 19th, 1930 at the age of 28 before his son was even born. Wow, that is very sad. Only 28. I couldn't find why he died, but wow. When Barbara was around age 2, so about 1925, after Claire, her sister, was born, her mother, Hortense, who was still in her late teens, was arrested and sent to reform school, and Barbara was placed in foster care, in which she alleged she was beaten and treated poorly. Upon release at age 21, Hortense refused to allow Barbara to live with her, and basically Barbara was raised by strangers and extended family. And although she was intelligent, she had very limited education. So obviously what I've just said might be confusing you, as we know her mother married later on and had a son, and I have no idea what happened to that son. Barbara's half brother and her sister, I don't know what happened to them. They're never mentioned again, and I really do not know how she was sent to reform school but then also got married and didn't want Barbara back. It's really confusing, so take that all with a pinch of salt. One or the other could be true. I found even sources on both of those descriptions of her childhood. They might both be true. I kind of got the idea that both of these things did happen. She did marry, the mum married, lost her husband before she gave birth to the son, but I think that happened after she was sent to the reform school. However, I don't know why she said that she didn't want Barbara to live with her again, because she did. It's really confusing. Anyway, it's very hazy, but all you need to know is Barbara was an orphan basically growing up. As a teenager, she was arrested for vagrancy, and she was actually sentenced to serve time at Ventura State School for Girls, the same school her mother had been to, the reform school. Released from reform school in 1939, Barbara tried to make a new start for herself. She married at just age 17 to Harry Kilheimer. Why has everyone in these cases got the most difficult surnames? So she married him in 1940, and he was a man that was 10 years older, and he was a US Coast Guardman. And Barbara enrolled in a business college and soon had her first 2 children with him. But the marriage was not a success, and by 1942, only 2 years later, she was already divorced. Harry was actually awarded custody of their 2 sons, and I don't think she ever sees them again. I'm not sure though, I'm not sure. Over the next several years, Barbara was married twice more. Each of these attempts at more of a traditional lifestyle failed. After this string of failures, Barbara is said to have become a worker in the sex trade using her good looks. She was quite a good looking lady, just like her mother had done before her. During World War II, that she plied her trade as what is known in some circles as a seagull, or a prostitute who flocked in pairs or groups near naval bases. It is supposed that Barbara began working in this way near the Oakland Army Base, Oakland Naval Supply Depot, and Alameda Naval Air Station. In 1942, so still only about 19, Barbara and other so-called seagulls travelled to Long Beach and San Diego. She was arrested on vice charges in these naval cities and in San Pedro. At 22, with her good looks, red hair, and her sex appeal, she worked for a time in San Francisco for brothel madam Sally Stanford. Sally is an interesting lady. She soon became involved in gambling and illegal drug circles, cultivating a number of friends who were ex-convicts and known career criminals. She actually served a 5-year sentence for perjury as a false alibi witness for 2 petty criminals, and she served her sentence at the California Women's State Prison. After Barbara's release, she would meet her to-be husband, Henry Graham, in 1950. He introduced Barbara to marijuana and possibly heroin. He was an addict, but Barbara claimed she never was. And the both of them were actually arrested in 1951 for an unspecified narcotics charge. After Barbara's sentence in state prison, she moved to Reno, Nevada, and then to Tonopah. She worked in a hospital and as a waitress. However, Barbara soon became bored, got on a bus to Los Angeles, where she got a room on the Hollywood Boulevard and returned to prostitution. And in 1953, she married that man, Henry Graham, who was a bartender, and the couple actually had a 3rd child together named Tommy. Her first 2 children's names and whereabouts are unknown, but obviously their father, Barbara's first husband, had full custody, so I think she kind of just forgot about them. Henry Graham, Barbara's husband, was a hardened criminal and drug addict. Through him, Barbara met his criminal friends, Jack Santo and Emmett Perkins. Very important people. And Barbara actually started an affair with Emmett Perkins, who was a gambling parlour owner and a big player in Los Angeles mobster Mickey Cohen's operation. I need to do a whole video on him, it's so interesting. Emmett told Barbara about a 64-year-old woman, Mabel Monahan, who was alleged to keep a large amount of cash at her home in Burbank. Although Barbara had associated with people that had criminal pasts before this, it said that she wasn't totally aware just how bad these men she'd been introduced to were. However, that changed on the night of March 9th, 1953. Barbara joined Emmett Perkins and Jack Santo, as well as John True and Baxter Shorter, who were 2 of Emmett's and Jack's associates, in robbing Mabel Monahan's home in Burbank. A bit about Mabel Monahan. She was a retired vaudeville performer who'd previously worked the Keith Albee circuit. Her ex-son-in-law was 74-year-old Luther B. Shearer, who was a multi-millionaire who was well known for his ownership of various gambling clubs in locations such as Palm Springs and casinos in Las Vegas. It's also speculated that Luther had deep ties in various crime syndicates. So Mabel Monahan's daughter Iris had divorced Luther 2 years prior and received the Burbank residence in the divorce settlement. Iris shortly thereafter married a different man and moved away to New York, leaving her mother Mabel to reside in their former home. Mabel and Luther, so her now ex-son-in-law, had remained close friends after the divorce, and their continued friendship piqued public interest, gossip, and rumours that would later prove deadly. One rumour that was widely circulated amongst criminals and in local bars was that Luther, due to his deep trust of Mabel, had left $100,000, which now in today's money is about $1 million, cash stashed in a safe in her residence. So, on to the murder. On March 8th, 1953, Barbara had dinner in the San Fernando Valley with Emmett Perkins, Jack Santo, John True and Baxter Shulter. Baxter stated that he initially did not want Barbara to participate because she was a dame, but Emmett Perkins convinced him that it was the only way Mabel would open the front door to a woman. On the evening of March 9th, 1953, Barbara reportedly gained entry by knocking on the door and asked to use Mabel's phone due to car trouble. Once Mabel opened the front door for Barbara, Emmett Perkins, Jack Santo and John True came in behind her, followed them by Baxter Shulter. Baxter claimed that when he entered the home, Mabel was already bleeding and had her mouth gagged. The gang tore up Mabel's home looking for the safe, money and/or jewels, but they found literally nothing. John True stated that Barbara handed a gun to Emmett Perkins and told him to, quote, knock her out. Baxter claimed that at this point he threw Emmett to the floor and convinced John True to remove the gag because he noticed that Mabel was having trouble breathing. So I'm not sure if they intended to kill her or to just kind of scare her whilst they're robbing her. When John True was discussing the events, he did not mention any of this, and he stated that Barbara began to viciously beat Mabel. After the gang left, Jack Santo assumed Mabel was dead. However, Baxter Shulter, once alone, called for help on a payphone. The address given to the operator was sadly incorrect, and very horrifically and sadly, Mabel was found in her home 2 days later by her gardener. This robbery attempt turned murder was such poor effort as nothing of value was found in the house. They would later learn at trial that $15,000 in jewels and valuables, around $156,000 today, were located in a purse in the closet. So they really didn't look very well, considering all of this went on for it. Mabel's daughter Iris offered a $5,000, which is $52,000 today, reward for information leading to the arrest and conviction of the mother's murderer or murderers. On March 26, 1953, police arrested and questioned 5 men in connection with the murder of Mabel. 3 were known associates of LA gangster Mickey Cohen, along with another man and Baxter Shulter. All of the men knew Mabel through her ex-son-in-law Luther Shearer. However, they were all released due to lack of evidence. Baxter Shulter, who was shaken at the thought of being sent to the gas chamber, could the police figure out his involvement, he volunteered to turn state's evidence and gave the police details of the Mabel murder and attempted robbery. He stated that he had seen Emmett Perkins hit Mabel with the gun and that he was shaken having witnessed the murder. However, Baxter's statement was leaked and he was later kidnapped and murdered by Emmett Perkins and Jack Santo after his release from police custody shortly after his confession. Can you believe that? It's like he's already confessed. Why bother killing him? Upon hearing of Baxter's disappearance and probable death, William Upshaw, a convicted felon, volunteered to testify before the grand jury. William testified that he had been in the car with Barbara Graham, Emmett Perkins, Jack Santo, John True and Baxter Shulter the night prior to the murder as the group conducted surveillance on Mabel's home and ran through the robbery plans. He stated that he decided not to participate out of the fear of retaliation from Luther Shearer. Subsequently, John True also agreed to become a state witness in exchange for immunity from prosecution. In court, John True testified against Barbara, who continually protested her innocence. The press nicknamed Barbara as Bloody Babs, reflecting the public disgust from her alleged actions. Having no alibi, Barbara doomed her own defence. Oh my god, this is actually so bad. She accepted another inmate's offer to pay $25,000, equivalent to $284,000 now, to the inmate and a friend who would provide her a false alibi. The inmate, however, was working to reduce her own sentence, and the friend who offered to say he was with Barbara the night of the murder was a police officer. Meeting with Barbara to plan the alibi story, he insisted that she admit to him that she had indeed been at the scene of the crime. The officer was recording the conversation. This attempt to suborn perjury, plus the recorded admission that she had indeed been at the scene of the widow Mabel's senseless, violent murder, abutted by her previous convictions, completely destroyed Barbara's credibility in court. When questioned about her actions at the trial, she said, quote, quote, "Have you ever been desperate? Do you know what it means not to know what to do?" Barbara was convicted while the informant was immediately released from jail, and her informant's sentence commuted to time served. The prosecution was led by District Attorney J. Miller Levy. Now, this thing I'm going to talk about actually happened before the trial, I think, but I wanted to add it in here because I just thought it was interesting. So the indictment for murder apparently hit Barbara pretty bad. She collapsed in her jail cell and banged her head on the floor. She seemed to have fallen with enough force to rob her of her ability to speak. But the doctors had their doubts because her hospital record stated that she either could not or would not talk. And the doctor's suspicions may have been well founded. Later, while she was on her way to court, Barbara tumbled down some stairs and she'd actually been overheard saying, quote, "When I really get into my act, I'm going to make Sarah Bernhard look like a chump." Barbara's injuries weren't serious and she was soon well enough to become involved in a minor altercation with another prisoner. The woman, Mary Kendall Curtis, who was serving a year for contributing to the delinquency of her own daughter, taunted Barbara about the likelihood of the gas chamber in the future, like saying you probably will get the gas chamber. Barbara belted her, and Barbara didn't deny smacking her cellmates, and she simply said that she was just offended by her remarks. Barbara Graham, Jack Santo and Emmett Perkins were all sentenced to death for the robbery and murder. Barbara appealed her sentence while at the California Institution for Women in Chino, California. Her appeals failed, and on June 2nd, 1955, she was transferred to San Quentin State Prison. On June 3rd, 1955, she was scheduled to be executed at 10 a.m, but that was delayed by California Governor Goodwin J. Knight until 10:45 a.m. It was then delayed again until 11:30 a.m, and Barbara actually said, quote, "Why did they torture me? I was all ready to go at 10 o'clock. At 11:28 a.m, she was led from her cell and strapped to the gas chamber. She requested a blindfold so that she would not have to look and see the observers. Her last words were, quote, "Good people are always so sure they're right." I don't know why that's so like eerie. She was actually advised that taking a deep breath after the cyanide pallets were dropped would make her death easier. She replied, "How the hell would you know?" Fair enough. Barbara Graham was killed by the gas chamber and was buried in Mount Olivet Ceremony, San Rafael, California. And that is actually the end of today's case. I know it's a bit of a short one, but it's so old and there wasn't much information about it. But I am genuinely intrigued. Like, she obviously had the most horrible childhood, but I don't think she should have gotten the death penalty. I really don't. What she did was awful, but she didn't lead this. The men were the ringleaders, and I don't know if she would have done this if it wasn't for them. I really don't know. Obviously that poor lady Mabel, like, she did not deserve that at all, but I don't know. Oh, it's a hard one. I don't know. It's really hard with these old cases because you don't have as much information, but I thought it was an interesting one and I wanted to do it anyway, as I know some of you do prefer the shorter cases. Let me know if you prefer long ones or short ones. Personally, I prefer really long ones, but yeah. Anyway, that is the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed listening to today's case, and it would mean the world to me if you could hit that subscribe button down below if you aren't subscribed already, and also discuss the case in the comments. You know I love your comments. Please do, and it helps my video get seen a little bit more. And if you could give it a big thumbs up, that would be great. And yeah, I will see you all very soon for another video.